And now I'd like to introduce our next presentation. It's a group, Isaiah Funt and Jack Horrigan. They're both freshmen at Michigan Tech. They both hail from Bay City and have a handful of ideas that they are developing. They are both winners of the Bob Mark Pitch Competition, receiving the Best Pitch Category Award in 2017. And they're here to represent their company Hinge and the product idea, the Split. Welcome.
I thought we were going to get a mic. That's okay. All right, so I'm Jack Horrigan. This is Isaiah Funt. Sure, why not?
Gotta get closer.
Hold it close. I'll switch. All right, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, we have a third. He's not here. His name's Tanner Sheehan. And we're here with an umbrella tech company we call Hinge. We've got two projects right now, Shine and Split. But we're here to talk about Split, which we started in Bay City, Michigan, our senior year of high school. We started about a year ago with a grant from Dow to work on a project that we had. And since then, we took that up to Michigan Tech with us, and we did the Bob Mark elevator pitch, got the best pitch, and we've continued working on it, meeting periodically, trying to balance it with school and this. Obviously, it's a big tech undertaking, literally and with Michigan Tech, but so what is it? What's the Split?
So there's a problem in our world that we don't really think of, or at least we think of and no one really has a solution. And that problem is the use of fossil fuels. Now, there's a lot of issues with damaging the planet. Obviously, fossil fuels and the emissions they release are going to have long-term damages on our ecosystem and our planet. And then also, when you think about the solutions that have been proposed, like electric vehicles, they also damage the planet. Building lithium-ion batteries produces a lot more waste than people usually think of, and that's also damaging. So it's not really the best solution to fossil fuels. Hydrogen is a viable solution to fossil fuel energy. However, hydrogen also has a few issues. There is an issue with production cost. To create a necessary amount of hydrogen to power vehicles or to heat homes, which it would be useful for, you have to spend a lot of money. It's not very efficient to produce a lot of hydrogen at this point. And then also, even if you could bring production costs down, distribution costs for hydrogen are at a really high level as well. So right now, hydrogen is at $4.50 per gallon of gas equivalent in energy, which makes it pretty expensive. I think if we all had to buy gas at $4.50 a gallon, we wouldn't be very happy about that. And so it's not a competitor at this stage. However, we've come up with a new, more efficient form of hydrolysis, which we think can lower not only production costs, but also can lower transportation costs in the long run.
So our solution is a literal split off of traditional energy sources and creating a new form of energy based off of hydrogen, right? So how do we do that? We split the water molecules, an H2O, into its two base elements, hydrogen, that's H2, and then the oxygen, which acts as an accelerant for that hydrogen fuel. And our new special technique in our technology makes it a lot more efficient, taking it from $4 all the way down, trickle down to about $1.30 to its equivalent in energy and gasoline, which is a fantastic price. And we plan to, and this is our 1 million cups reference, we plan to be the Keurig of the industry instead of the Starbucks of the industry. So if you think about that in concept, right? Hydrogen producers right now act as Starbucks. You have to go to them to get your hydrogen, and it comes at a very high price. If we can make a product that creates the hydrogen on demand in your home, a lot like a Keurig, it brings that price all the way from up here, all the way back down to here. So it becomes the everyman's energy, just like gasoline is. It's more production, it's not as damaging to the environment like fossil fuels are, and the distribution cost is completely gone because it's right in your home, just like a Keurig is in your kitchen.
So there's a lot of market opportunity that is available here. Energy production by itself globally is around $1.8 trillion with a compound annual growth rate around 10%. And hydrogen production is around 115 billion, which I think is a little bit larger than most of us would have assumed. We don't really hear a lot about hydrogen production, but it is a growing market. It actually has a compound annual growth rate of around 14%, which is extremely high for market growth. And then electrolysis, that number is actually false. We went back and researched, it's actually higher. The market for electrolysis is around $720 million with a compound annual growth rate of around 8%. So that is growing at a pretty steady rate as well. So there is a lot of market opportunity that is available with this technology.
So our path to market and sort of how we see ourselves landing with our technology is that first we want to focus on the viability. So we want to get this product out to people who produce hydrogen so that we can make it and refine it and make it into its own compact system. Then we want to go to utilities, so home heating, hydrogen cars, very European idea, things like that, getting them in the hands of the consumer of hydrogen. Then portability, we want to make it more rugged so it can go in your car, so you can run your car and have it right there, so you're fueling inside. And then accessibility, getting it to everyone. Anyone who wants it, anyone who needs it, it becomes as common as a cell phone.
And I think that's it for the presentation. Any questions?
So have you made the technology work yet?
Yes, we do have a working prototype.
Okay. And what is the quality of H2O that we need? Can you use dirty water, salt water?
You can use salt water, but the most efficient is distilled water. So there is the cost of buying distilled water or distilling the water yourself.
As with everything, better ingredients get you a better product, basically, yeah.
You can use salt water, you just run, or tap water as well. You just run into the issue of creating different types of gases that you didn't want to create in the first place. So that is an issue.
Can you share anything about the technology itself? I mean, why is it different than previous? I mean, the electrolysis is always been a fairly simple process.
Yeah.
So can you tell us how you improved on it?
Yeah, it's like a 1,000-year-old technology of putting the positive and the negative in the water and creating the hydrogen. Instead of using a constant current, we change it in a certain way where it reduces on the energy spent and maximizes the efficiency of what you're putting in. So a lot of the inefficiencies that you have that get released in heat and other things are essentially taken away with our special process.
And then also we are using different alloys than previously have been used. So different types of metals that haven't conventionally been used in electrolysis.
Do you have a patent? Do you have a patent?
No.
Patent.
We're in the process of
Yeah.
working through that with Jason. So.
Okay.
What does your timeline look like? What are you hoping to achieve?
Do we have a slide for that here?
We should. Milestones.
Well-
So where we are now is a working prototype and looking at several potential customers. We've talked to companies like Airgas, Praxair, and then also some companies that use hydroxy torch welding, which would also be another application of this. And they have expressed interest in the idea. So there are several potential customers. So our stage one would be it's changed from large refueling stations to creating our own hydrogen and selling it to companies like Praxair and Airgas as a distributor to them, since we can produce it cheaper. And that would be probably around a good couple years down the road. We're not at this, we're at the research and development stage of taking our prototype, testing it, refining it, and then we'll get to that stage. Stage two, at-home creation, would be at the minimum 5 to 10 years down the road, and everything past that can't really be determined yet.
What's your greatest hurdles? I mean, what is your greatest challenge that you foresee?
Well, because it's a technology, like you said, that everybody knows, we've run into a few opportunities that were maybe squashed out because they just don't believe that it's true. and they don't want to believe that it's true because, like, why would a couple of high schoolers be able to revolutionize the energy industry, right? That's the question we've run up against. But we think with enough enthusiasm and enough getting it out there and actually showing them that it works, because we do have a working prototype, that that kind of adversity will end up going away. And if you have anything to add to that.
Just like he said, trying to convince people that there is a new source of tech, there is a new type of technology that can do what we say. Because it sounds a little amazing and pretty, and usually when you hear something
And a
that
little crazy.
amazing, you usually want to take a step back and say, well, that can't be true. And that's where we were at first when we first came up with the new process. We were skeptical of the whole thing. In fact, he basically said, this isn't going to work. There's no point in even trying. But we just continued with it, and we've seen it work, and now we're here trying to prove to everyone else that it can work.
Are you still going to work with your prototype and the possibility of further improving the efficiencies of it? Are you still experimenting?
Yeah.
Yes.
We have a lot of different things that we want to test. There's many ways of doing this technology. It's just finding the best right now. So I know MIT is researching coating the metal in a certain polymer that makes it work better. And then a lot of people on YouTube are trying dry cell, so they cover it all in like a silicone and makes it like its own insulated system, and they pump it full of water. And then there's like a third. Basically, we're trying all the different methods and maximizing the efficiency essentially, and not focusing on just one.
Do you have a professor who's interested in your, at Michigan Tech?
We have a few, but none of them are very technically minded. We're still looking for someone that focuses most on the hydrogen production industry. We have
Our main mentor is Jason Mack. So.
right.
I'm hydrogen, professional.
Yeah.
Today.
But, oh, go
Nope.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I just wondered, do you have any initial numbers as to how the efficiency of your new process compares to the traditional process?
So we haven't really been able to test the actual readings of how much hydrogen we're producing, but doing like calculations, theoretically it should be somewhere around 1.8 to 2.2 times more efficient, somewhere in that range.
And that's doing the coffee-fueled stoichiometry. Yeah. I don't know.
I had a question about like where this process would belong within, say, a company. In one of these first stages, it would be probably at the beginning of whatever product process they have, because they need the energy to do the process that they make their product with. Have you thought about inserting this technology in another part of like a product process? So if a plant or a mine or something has like a water purification process that's necessary for their their operation, can this be part of that process? And I'm thinking about like the sort of buzz concept of circular economy. So if you become an efficient part of their already existing process, it'd be something that they may be. It's a comment or an idea. It's not necessarily a question, but
Right. So we haven't really thought directly about that, but if you combined it with a water purification process, it would definitely make it more efficient. The thing that we're really trying to focus on is you can't really store hydrogen because it's really dangerous. You just can't have big tanks of hydrogen sitting out in the back because it might blow up your building, right? So if you can make it on demand to what you need now, then it becomes a more efficient, and you don't have to pay the guy to ship it in every single day so that you don't blow up your plant, essentially. So it becomes more economically feasible with things like a water purification system, yeah.
I'm sorry to ask so many questions, but what do you guys want to accomplish? I mean, do you want to go into business yourself and have, be in some sort of production, not of the technology, but actually of the hydrogen, or do you envision just producing the technology and selling it, or do you just want to sell the rights to somebody? Because, I mean, if what you're saying I mean, it's very exciting and very interesting to me. I mean, the potential is huge, and I'm sure you recognize that. But, I mean, what do you envision your own roles being in the development of this? You just want to get a bunch of money and move on?
Well, it sounds a little silly, but I do just like to make cool stuff. You know,
Doesn't sound silly to me.
since I was in, I don't know, elementary school, I would just try to make like fun things that I'm like, oh, this is cool. Look, Mom, and stuff like that. So that's sort of the idea, and that's why we didn't focus just on the split. Hinge is our umbrella technology company, and right now we're developing this and a toilet seat cover that has UV light capabilities, so it sanitizes the seat that you sit on. So, we just like to do some fun stuff.
And then to answer your question about like the rights and all that, we thought about selling this as like a unit. So you would sell it as a electrolysis or hydrolysis unit to companies. The issue that we ran into with that is that there's not a lot of companies out there who want to necessarily buy an electrolysis unit per se. Because
Right now.
So we've been thinking that we'll start with producing our own hydrogen and selling it to distributors like Airgas and Praxair who already have connections. And then once we've established that our technology is more viable, again, with the go-to-market plan, viability, then we can move on to making these units for in-house demand and then showing that you can even do this in cars and then go from there. So I don't think we're going to sell the rights or do anything like that. We had thought about it. But I think we're going to try to take this step by step, and because we have to prove that it actually has worked before we can even think about selling the rights or anything like that.
What can we, as a community, do to support you guys?
Right. So obviously everybody has an idea. It's just getting the funding and the backing to go for it. Everybody goes through it. So with continued support from the community, obviously it pushes us when you literally push us out the door and say, go get it, right? So if anyone has any sort of connections or any sort of help, even questions like that, it really helps us. So just having everybody here saying like, yes, go get it, makes us happy and makes us want to go out there and do what it is that makes you guys proud. So thank you all for listening, and sorry.
On that note, just want to mention, we have a local company that has a patent and a patent application around oxygen removal. And the patent is for removing oxygen for sensors that measure nitrate or phosphate. And the patent application is for oxygen removal from food packaging. And they utilize enzymes to do this. So I think it would be interesting to pair you up with these folks and have a conversation. I mean, the electrolysis sounds cool, but enzymes are super cheap. And I don't know if they can be extended, in that kind of capacity. But I think it'd be something to explore.
Right, I'd be super interested to hear about these folks if you have the contact information.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you, if you use it to power a car, how would you stop the car from breaking down and burning out of petroleum?
Right. It's mostly about tuning the efficiency to where when you push down on the gas pedal, cars work in a sort of like, when you push down on the gas pedal, it revs up your engine and it injects the fuel. Basically, we want to make that process transfer over to the hydrogen production. So when you rev down your gas pedal, it ramps up the electricity and then ramps up the hydrogen production so that you have the hydrogen there to keep producing. So it's a constant loop.
So would you put water in your car or something?
Yeah, and the water consumption is actually super low. There's how many?
So in a,
You have the numbers.
I have to think. So like in a 4 foot by 4 foot by 1.5 foot box, you have something like 1,000 liters of water. I'm not actually sure on these numbers anymore. And then in every liter of water, there are 1,230 liters of hydrogen. So there is a lot of energy stored within every liter of water. So you wouldn't run out of water for quite a long time, and even if you do, it's just refilling it back up with water.
which is something we don't think about. Water molecules are really small compared to the huge carbon chains that gasoline are. So there's actually a lot more in a more compact area than there is gasoline.
And also, another way this compares with electric vehicles is a lot of electric vehicles take around an hour to charge. It takes a long time. Hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, which is what this would go to first, which is just running hydrogen through a fuel cell in your car. Those take around 5 minutes to fill up with hydrogen, and so there's the consumer wants the quick fill-up time. They don't want to wait an hour to charge their car, and so that's also a selling point, that you don't have to wait as long to fill up your car and get on the road.
So, really good question. And that's obviously our third step, is making it rugged so that it doesn't fall apart and it's able to get you out the door and not break down on the side of the highway, right? So, thank you.
When you burn hydrogen, you get water.
Right. So it's absolutely, I mean, it really does sound crazy, right? So like a zero cost system that like is green to the environment. But truly we've seen it work. I've seen it work with my own eyes. I didn't believe it. I still sort of don't believe it, but I'm really excited about the technology because it really seems like it's going to be the future. Yeah.
I guess, have you encountered anyone else who's developing something remotely similar? And who do you think your biggest competitor is in this space?
There's a lot of research into different types of hydrolysis, using hydrolysis in different hydrogen-based compounds. But as for just refining basic hydrolysis to this level and using, instead of using analog-based electronics, which is what a lot of that used to run on, it's going to be, I don't know what you're doing.
Digital. So we're trying to switch from the very most basic that everyone knows, they do it and they stop, and we're trying to refine those down to be digital so that it runs with microprocessors instead of capacitors and switches, stuff like that.
So there are people doing basic hydrolysis and even looking at like different things, but as for like doing that type of digital microprocessor work, and then also looking at a lot of different materials used in conjunction with different processes, I have not encountered anything like this yet.
Honestly, our main competitors are literally the technology that we're trying to improve upon, and getting stomped out by them. So, yeah. All right, thank you guys for listening.
Excellent job.